This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barreiro's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
Don't forget, Jonny Athletic will join in less than 30 minutes. What do you got?
We'll start with the Twins. They avoided the sweep yesterday, winning 6-3 against the Blue Jays at home. They continue the homestand against the Rangers after a day off. They'll play tomorrow at 6:40. Just okay, I'd say, for the Twins as of late. Not great, not terrible.
Yeah, they, at least, as you said, salvaged. They were in danger of being swept. We know about their starting pitching woes. I guess the one positive you can grab onto a little bit is that Royce Lewis has shown some of that hitting prowess. Now, you know, he's got to sustain it, obviously. But for the first time since basically, the collapse that ended the 2024 season in disaster, he is starting to show a little bit more authority hitting the ball, knocking the ball around. So that would be a welcome boost for a team that probably is going to have to get more consistent offensively, given they've lost their workhorse of a starting pitcher, and given that Lavelle E. Neal III, despite what he wrote Sunday, knows there's not a chance in hell that the Twins are going to make any kind of ambitious move for a hitter or a pitcher. You can argue what would be more important at this particular point, but it ain't going to happen. He knows it's not going to happen. I think what happens is occasionally the ball guys want to cover themselves because they get ripped for not ripping ownership enough or challenging them enough to be a little bit more ambitious. So he said, I'll have this in my back pocket. Well, remember in early June when I said the Pollard's got to go out and spend some of that money? You can't call me one of those apology ball guys. I went out and I said it. But I think that's all part of the master plan by Lavelle. I think he knows this way he gets inoculated from any further criticism for making excuses for any members of the Pollard family, especially Joe.
Immediately following this program, starting at 6:30 is the pregame. Puck drop is at 7. You hear all the action right here on the Fan. It's Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final. Oilers, Panthers, every single game. Well, all 2 of them. But every game has been great so far in this series. It's been dramatic. Now the series shifts to sunrise. Say that 5 times fast. For Game 3, who do you like?
Well, it's interesting because both series are 1-1, right? NBA Finals and Stanley Cup. I view Game 3 of Pacers. The series is moving to Indianapolis for Game 3. I don't think until Wednesday. I think the next game in the NBA Finals is Wednesday. Whenever it is, I view it as awfully pivotal for the Pacers. Because I think if they want to really be taken, they stole Game 1. They got pretty much dominated in Game 2, and so to me, this is a game where was that Game 1 victory kind of fluky, or can they really compete with Oklahoma City? I think that's what Game 3 is going to show. On the other hand, you know, the Panthers and Edmonton is also 1-1, but I view, how can you argue? Even if the Panthers lose, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, now it's Edmonton's series. I think in that series, we've already seen enough of, in my view, of both teams to say this is going to be a long series. I'm not sure home ice is going to tell the tale. I think on paper, the Pacers are not as good as Oklahoma City, so they more need to go out and prove it by making Game 3 pivotal. You win Game 3, then I think you fully have Oklahoma City's attention. Panthers, I mean, I don't think they have to win. Obviously, they want to win it because they're home, but I don't think they have to win it because I look at this as a series where the home ice might not mean much at all, quite frankly.
Well, I think it's going 7.
Yeah,
I don't know how it's getting there.
Right, exactly.
But it's going 7, whereas the NBA one, which that's what I was going to get to next, and next game is Wednesday, so a little bit of a wait. But to me, the hockey one is much more of that's going 7.
Yes.
And it's going to be entertaining the entire way. Now, I'm not sure what the entertainment value was at game 2. I was scoreboard watching, and it didn't draw me to
it was not.
It
was not very entertaining.
Game 1
in the NBA Finals series.
Yeah, game 1 of the NBA Finals was great with the last second shot, Halliburton, all that. But I feel like that one's probably going to be done quicker than the NHL one.
If the Pacers don't win, if they fall down 2-1, you're probably going to be right. If they win it, then I think all things are possible at that point. That's why I think the onus is still on the Pacers. You know, there was a series, I don't remember what year it was, many, many years ago, Allen Iverson and Philly against, I want to say it was the Lakers, and the Lakers were heavily favored, and Philly won game 1 in Los Angeles. And people went, whoa! That's the only game of the series they won. It ended up being the Lakers winning it in 5. So, you know, that's the question here now. Did the Pacers expose some vulnerabilities in Oklahoma City, or did the Pacers just play really well at the right time at the end, and Oklahoma City has now, remembered what they're supposed to be? Their defense again in game 2 was very, very good. But the Pacers are one of those teams I can't, dig them into a grave yet. Because this whole run has been, every time people think they're just about done, they go out and steal another game. And they're going home, and they're very well coached. So we'll see how it goes.
Breaking news: east of the border, my Green Bay Packers have released officially. It just happened. We knew it was going to happen earlier today. It officially happened, as of team Twitter and everything, officially at around 3:00 when we started. Jair Alexander no longer a member. He's released. He's up for grabs for anyone who wants him. And there's strong rumors in the winds that it could be your Minnesota Vikings.
Well, I assume there's going to be some other
speculation.
Teams. Yeah, speculation. Now, Seifert seemed bored with it.
Yeah.
He questioned, he wondered, he didn't deny that he would help, but he wondered if that the Vikings would conclude that there are too many risks with this player between injuries and even some drama, that even the thought of a heavily incentive-laden 1-year deal might not be all that appealing, although he did concede that you could easily argue that the Vikings remain one veteran cornerback short. Now, there are other options there that might still be available between now and the start of training camp or the start of the season. I think they got to kick the tires on them. I think they are obligated to do that. And look, if your people come to the conclusion that the drama stuff is too dangerous, then okay, maybe you say we're not going to mess with it at all. We know about the injuries. That's where you protect yourself by not, signing him to a massive deal, but a deal that is largely dependent on how much he's actually on the field. And, is there another team that might be willing to go further than that? Then I would say, God bless you. But if you can somehow get him, after you do your due diligence, at a reasonable cost on a 1-year deal, where he might even have desire to do it that way, so that next year he stays healthy this year, and then next year, if he plays well, he ends up with a much bigger payday than he otherwise would have. I think you at least have to explore it, because he's a damn good cover guy. It's just that he's missed as many games as he's played, and that's been the case as recently as the last couple of years, correct?
It has been. Yeah, I think he missed
7. I think he's played 7 the last 2 years, each of the last 2 seasons, something like that.
Yeah, it's not good. Not good enough. And when he was out there, he wasn't 100%. Last thing for you, we were speaking of potentially future Vikings, former Vikings. The Falcons expect Kirk Cousins to be present when the team begins its mandatory minicamp tomorrow. That's a Rossini piece. He would be fined every day that he misses mandatory minicamp. I thought this was kind of done and he'd be moving on, but it seems
I thought it was the opposite. I thought he said, "I'm okay. I'll go there," and he's just biding his time until a possible trade or something.
Well, yeah, but the trade, I was waiting for the trade or something to happen. Yeah, but he's just. I guess he's just got to take his medicine and go for it. I don't know what the solution's going to be there where he would go.
Is the indication that he isn't going to show up, or that he is going to show up for tomorrow?
I think it's more of he's going to be fined if he doesn't. And they expect him to be there.
Yeah.
So I'd assume he's going to be
there. He could probably
he can pay the fine.
I think he can pay the fines pretty easily, right? I don't think he's ever going to run out of money. Yeah, knowing him, he'll show up, and then maybe the hope still is, okay, I'll do what I got to do. I'll play by the rules. And, the great unknown is injury, right? Yeah. The great unknown is somebody gets hurt for some team, and they go, let's take a look at him. What's he got left? We're desperate enough. Let's take a chance. As a backup, he'd obviously be a terrific backup quarterback, but realistically, the assumption is he does not want to be a backup. He wants to take one last shot at being a starter.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, Johnny Athletic is coming up in 15 minutes. I got a couple of other texts to get to, a couple other controversies before that. Don't go away.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Bumper is the name of the program. John Athletic will be coming up in about 10 to 15 minutes or so. The latest out of California is now the president is calling out the Marines. Speaking of, as we said, the escalation game, and the one thing adds to another. I believe the number I saw was something like 700 Marines will be called up or activated. The president also said that, also called for the arrest of the governor of the state of California. When he was asked, well, what specifically would be the charges, he didn't have any. He just made stuff up as he goes along. But that's the world of performance, sadly, in which we live. But there's so much more at stake. That's why you can't trivialize it by calling it performance. Sorry about that. I was just seeing there was an interview with Mike Johnson regarding the president's call to arrest the governor of California. It's all in the day's work. I was busy all day today. I heard that for the first time sitting next to the president. I don't know what all that involved, but he gave comment there, and I'll stick by what he said. It's just a bunch of parrots and toadies. That's what we got. Here's what I want to get to. Maybe the Vikings could get good insight on Jair Alexander from Aaron Jones. You sit him down and you say, what do you think? Dana writes, they trust his opinion, and who would know better? That's all the tire kicking they need to do. Well, I would think you'd use it as a tool. I mean, he doesn't have to be the last word, but that is an advantage. As you say, you got some people going early with your trolling about how the Vikings always want ex-Packers. That was the goal. You might have seen that. It seemed like it worked exactly to your satisfaction, correct? You got out of it exactly what you wanted, correct?
Most of my shots towards the Vikings are just to get people going. It's not for real.
In 1991, writes Dave from Lester Prairie, we couldn't watch the North Stars in the Stanley Cup Finals unless you subscribed to Spectrum. Ridiculous. I don't remember that. I was obviously here for it. But I would say, even if that's true in some cases, in Chicago in the early 70s, there was nothing, let's say you're prepared to spend the extra money to sign up. There was no option. Those are the days when the Wirtzes felt like, well, no, if we don't black this out, we're never going to be able to sell tickets, which is patently false. It's absurd. But it was actually very sad at the time, right? Think about that concept. Your team's in the Stanley Cup Finals, and you can't watch them. You got to listen to the game, the home games. You got to listen to the games on the radio. It was now it did improve my jump shot because as Carl from Cottage Grove writes, what kind of range did Driveway Danny have from the logo (parentheses grass)? I could shoot. I couldn't dribble, and I couldn't guard. if you if you could just let me stand and take jump shots, I could hit them. The problem is, of course, in basketball, you have to be able to do several things, right? You got to be able to do more than that. But I had pretty good range. So, yeah, the logo was the grass back in those days. You didn't really have much choice other than that. Somebody else who said they have looked back and watched the Mike Douglas show that featured Sly Stone with Muhammad Ali. They're claiming that the two of them got into a big brawl, verbal brawl, during that particular episode. I'm wondering what the argument was over. Was it something political? Not sure. Dan Minnesota confirmed, had to do pay-per-view to watch the North Stars and Penguins. My parents were not pleased. They were not pleased. No, in fact, I think I might have written a mocking Norm Green column at the time, suggesting some desire to start writing pay-per-view columns, like extra columns that if you wanted them on a specific subject, you'd have to pay for them separately. I don't think it went very far, but it was to make a point at the time regarding look, it's the old thing of you got to make your product available. And you can't, I don't think, if and most products are not free, depending on what, how you consume, what kind of platform you're on. But the idea that you would, add to the price or change the price on the basis of or have to spend more money on the basis of postseason, I think it's not very logical, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, I would say. Tenneby listed his best Vikings so far this decade. 3 players were Packer retreads. Really? Is that true? Were you a part of that conversation?
I was.
You loved that, didn't you?
It was a little delicious. Yeah.
This decade. So
No, it was from the year 2000 on.
Oh, 2000 on. Okay.
Yep.
And
so Favre.
Who else was it?
I think you put Darren Sharper in there, and I think Longwell as well.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How many did he name? I mean, he had is it a top 10 list, or was that literally?
No, it was that went position for position.
Was that, you think he was just trying to get people going, Vikings fans going on the Packer thing?
Well, he killed 2 segments out of it, so that's what we're...
Oh, by the way, real quick, this doesn't demand a lot of time. Are you familiar with something called the NAIA?
Yes.
Okay, the NIAA, I think it's a college sports or college organization, right? Colleges that aren't in the NC2A, right?
Correct.
So it's not the same level. Nevertheless, did you see what the newly crowned NAIA national champion LSU Shreveport baseball team did?
No.
They played from the start of the regular season to the end of the postseason, 59 games. Their record, 59-0.
Wow.
This is baseball.
Yeah.
They never lost a game in baseball, for God's sake. 59-0. Has that ever been done before? I don't know. I doubt. I have to. Now, we're clamoring. I still waiting for Ryan Donaldson to send me the Roar for 44. By the way, it's intact because the Lynx struggled with Dallas without Paige Beckers, by the way. So you weren't wrong with your reporting yesterday. Beckers was cleared from concussion protocol, but then she was ruled out of the game because of illness. So she didn't play. The Lynx dominated until going into the fourth quarter, they let most of the leads slip away, and then they just destroyed Dallas. So the Lynx remain one of 2 undefeated teams in the WNBA. New York is the other. So the Roar for 44, because there are 44 regular season games in the WNBA season now, is intact and ongoing. So, I don't think anybody's ever done. I don't even know how 59-0. They swept their season opening 3-game series against something called McPherson by a combined score of 38-4.
Wow.
That sounds like they might have even run up the score. They had a 7-6 walk-off victory in February. That was apparently the closest call. But after that, they only had 3 more one-run victories the rest of the year. They never even got taken into extra innings, won most of their games by double digits. They almost sound like the Oklahoma City Thunder to a certain degree. So that congratulations to them. And apparently they sold out. Their capacity at Pilot Field is about 1,000. And I guess they sold out as the story got bigger and bigger and bigger. And again, we ain't talking about, shall we say, the most luxurious of travel arrangements in the NAIA. 1 plane trip the entire year. That was to Spokane for the World Series in Lewiston, Idaho. And every other road trip, bus. 1 bus trip back and forth to New Mexico, 10 hours each way. That's baseball, right? That's where you really separate the men from the boys. So congratulations to LSU Shreveport, 59-0. So close circuit to Cheryl Reeve. She mocks and ridicules this whole concept of the Roar for 44. But I think Shreveport proves that something like this can indeed be done. And in this case, it absolutely was. A good piece in the Wall Street Journal on this particular story. I had one other text I wanted to get to here in a minute. Where did it go? Well, I'll try to exit later, or no, star it, I guess is what you should do in the business, but I can't find it at this particular moment. I know. It was going back to the cornerback discussion. Asante Samuel Jr., is he still available? How come he hasn't signed with a team yet? I don't know. Where is he signed with anybody? I have no idea where he is or what he's up to. That was going back to the discussion on whether the Vikings should have interest in Jair Alexander as well. If you have questions for John Athletic, maybe you're looking for some Timberwolves steam, some trade rumors of note, whether Chris Finch is going to stay as the head coach or go to New York. He ain't going to go to New York. Most of us know that, although it sounds like there might be a little bit more momentum indicating Jason Kidd might have some interest in moving from Dallas to New York if he is allowed out of his deal. 64686, Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line, whatever is on your mind. Jonny, who promises us a studio appearance next week, is there.
It's time for Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic, Jonny Athletic, and he's on with Dan Barreiro right now.
It is indeed that time again. Questions for Jonny, 64686. That's what you need to hit. The Bradshaw and Bryant, highly celebrated, highly decorated KFAN text line. And the questions are already pouring in as we speak. Jonny now joins us, RBC Wealth Management, the wonderful sponsor of Jonny's bit on this radio station. And not to mention the iHeartRadio app as well. Charlie from Prior Lake has a good, I wouldn't call it a toss-up question. It's a little bit more specific than that, but it ventures into, I think, a legitimate area. Does Jonny have a list of point guards that the Wolves could logically pursue in either free agency or via a trade? I know there's a lot else to figure out before making that decision, but can you give me some names, whether big names or unheard of names?
Yeah, it's a good question because I do think that seems to be the biggest issue that they want to solve long term, right? Is they want to find the heir apparent to Mike Conley. And I will say that it is entirely possible that Rob Dillingham is that guy. But I do still think that there's probably a need for some other veteran bridge until Dillingham is fully ready to take over, barring some major leap this offseason and barring Chris Finch really just kind of changing the way that he goes about things and opening it up. So the difficulty with that approach is like these are not there's not a ton of guys out there who are available now. I do think that Tyus Jones is available. He did not have a good season in Phoenix, so I don't think that he would necessarily be priced out of the Wolves' purview. And he is kind of like a Mike Conley type of a player, and Mike Conley's had a lot of success here. So would there be a way for them to figure out getting Tyus Jones back here? It's possible. They've had interest in him before with Tim Connolly, and so that's a name that I would look at. There's a real hot name that is going around right now is Darius Garland.
Yep.
And that's kind of the big fish that you would look at who could be available. He and Anthony Edwards have a lot of respect for each other. I do think the issue with that move is, one, you have to make a trade with Cleveland, which I think they could do, but then you are kind of getting back into the issue that you ran into with Karl Anthony Towns in terms of you have another very big money player next to Anthony Edwards. Depending on who you have left over in a trade, you'd still have some high contracts as well. So being able to navigate that in the salary cap would be an issue. But Garland is a name to at least keep an eye on. I don't think it's likely. I don't think it's something that would be easy to do. But anytime these big names become available, I keep an eye on them for the Wolves, because Tim Connolly loves to make these moves and loves to get aggressive with it. And so Garland's a name I'm watching, not expecting, but certainly keeping an eye on here.
I want to refer you back to a comment that I described via X as hurtful from Kevin Fallness a couple of days ago. This was in the wake of the highly competitive, very dramatic Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Tremendous hockey, Fallness wrote. Feel bad for people like Barreiro and Krasinski as they clutch their pearls while watching endless timeouts and missed free throws. The entertainment is phenomenal. Then he's got a period and then 3 dots after that, so I don't know what that means. I'm not sure I understand his punctuation, but I think you kind of get his point. I found the comments hurtful. You went, I think, a little more frontal than I did. But what did you make of the Fallness salvo?
I mean, first of all, I don't know that he understands what clutching pearls means, because I don't think you and I either do that with hockey or basketball or any of it. It means to be offended by or be kind of gasp at the horror of it. And that's not what we do at all. To me, my response, and it wasn't just Fallness. There was 4 or 5 people in my mentions during the game and after the game, kind of talking down about basketball and, boy, you're missing out and all of these things. And it really does boggle my mind how not everyone, but certainly a good amount of hockey fans, when they have a great game, which it was an amazing game. And the first 2 games of the Cup Finals have been awesome. And yet, so their first instinct is not to sit back and enjoy this and think, wow, this is validating my investment that I put into this. And this is a great game. And man, I love this. It's instead, I'm going to go to social media and I'm going to sneer at the basketball folks. And my response to those salvos is the Don Draper from Mad Men. When we watched, Dan, when you and I watched Game 1 of the NBA Finals, unbelievable game.
Yep.
Kind of big swings of momentum. Halliburton hits the shot at the end to win the game. Huge upset in Game 1. Pacers over the Thunder. Just a great, great game. And I did not think at all about hockey fans. Not one bit. I could not have cared less about them in that moment. I was not going to go and puff my chest out about how great basketball is and how much better it is than hockey. I really did not care. I thought zero about the game. And it's just funny how it's not the case for some, not all, but a good contingent of hockey fans out there when they get a little bit of something to get excited about.
It's a boulder-sized chip on the shoulder, unfortunately. And the really ironic part in my case was that before the Fallness salvo, my previous 2 tweets were both celebrating the hockey game. One was sports remains undefeated, which was a theme we were talking about on the show. And that was when Edmonton tied it with 17 seconds to go in regulation. And the one before that was I retweeted a basketball guy, Rob Perez, who had a tweet, "Is this a hockey sham god?" And it was a Connor McDavid is not human video, a tremendous piece of puck possession leading to a goal that where you couldn't even believe what McDavid did with his control of the puck and the moves he made. So aren't those both? So that was a double bet. Two different basketball people celebrating a hockey move, and I retweeted it.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, it was like, well, why don't you talk about the hockey game? Can't make it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and the comment I went directly to Fallness with was a Rudy Gobert tweet saying insecurity is always loud.
Yeah,
and that's what it is. It's just an insecurity. It's a pay attention to me. You need to respect me. This is our game. You already pour your own water on the ice. We know. We get it. You like it. We're happy for you. I enjoy watching hockey. I'm not going to be the one proselytizing about it. I don't understand the need to do that. You enjoy the game. You had a great game. Just soak it in. Just have fun with it. It's great. It doesn't have to be for everyone. And maybe, just maybe, some of the people you assume aren't watching or don't like it or are dismissive of it might be watching it as well. It's okay. Just let's all have fun together. And they're just, it's incredible, the insecurity in some of the community over there.
By the way, reminded by, apparently, did Shams just have a tweet recently suggesting that Garland just underwent surgery to repair a great big toe injury that will sideline him for several months. I don't know what impact that might have on him being dealt anywhere. The other thing real quick on Garland I want to mention, he's not a real tall guard, is he? No. You'd have to put him in the mix because he's obviously an upgrade in a number of ways offensively. But I'm also, I guess maybe this is the reality. Everybody's got flaws, but I'm not sure he would give you everything that people think that you're going to get from him. I think there's some legitimate questions about him too, frankly.
For sure. Yes, he's definitely undersized. The ironic thing, Dan, is he is just like a grown-up Rob Dillingham. Like, that's the version of him. Yeah. Now, will Dillingham ever get to Garland's level? We don't know. But they're the same style of player. Shifty, very great handle. Garland's an incredible shooter. Dillingham is not there yet. So just a really great offensive weapon. The other thing that he does really, really well is he throws lob passes to Biggs. So if you do not include Rudy Gobert in a trade for Garland, maybe you can kind of access that part of Gobert's game a little bit better. But yeah, it would not be just a panacea. Just an immediate, okay, no concerns, now we're going forward. I really do like the fit alongside of a big, tough Anthony Edwards, defensive that who can play some defense and do all those things. But there would be some concerns, just like there would be concerns with Kevin Durant from a health standpoint. I think if you were to put in a vacuum the two players in their games, I would take Durant over Garland because A, the price tag will be less. B, Durant can play some defense and has some size to him. But you would certainly be worried about the health.
Yeah.
With Garland, I'm less worried about the health, but more worried about size, defense, kind of some of those other things. So neither one is a perfect option, but certainly one that should be considered.
I lean your way as well on that. So did Finchie was it ever a Finchie dream to coach at Madison Square Garden as the home coach?
I don't think so, Dan. Certainly he's from, the Philadelphia area, so it's East Coast. And so he grew up a Sixers fan, though. But when you look at, I think, the way that organization has been historically run, they've been much better lately. But I think there are some real concerns about ownership there. Yep. There's some real concerns just about the culture in the building there. Certainly all of the eyeballs on you And I think a lot of coaches will be a little bit nervous about taking a job like that because the precedent is set now, Dan. It's championship or bust. Tibbs made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals and had an incredible amount of success there, and it wasn't enough. And so if you're going there to take Tibbs's place, the mandate is win a championship. And I think that is an unreasonable expectation of that roster as currently constructed. And so I would imagine that most coaches that have other good options, as Finchie does right now, would be reluctant to do that. And so I do not see anything coming of any purported interest between the New York Knicks with Chris Finch. I just don't see that happening. And I think there are a lot of good reasons for that.
Did I get the feeling from you? I mean, could Rudy be in play somewhere if there are big moves?
I mean, I don't think it's impossible, Dan. Is it likely? No. I think that they really like Rudy. They love what he brings from a defensive standpoint. They also recognize that he is a floor raiser, and that's an important thing for a team that always wants to be in the mix. With Rudy Gobert, you're going to win a lot of games. You're going to be in the playoff mix. Are you going to be in the championship mix with Gobert at this stage of his career? That's a question that remains open. And so I think that there is one truly untouchable player on this roster in Anthony Edwards. Yeah. I think Jaden McDaniels' approach is untouchable, but everyone else I think is available to an extent or to a degree. And so I think it would take a lot for the Timberwolves to part with Rudy, but I don't think it's impossible that Gobert would be moved if they think they can upgrade the roster. And we heard Rudy say it earlier this season, talking about Tim Connolly. He just said, he will look you right in the eye and say, if there's something there, I will trade you. And he'll be upfront about it. And that's just how Tim Connolly operates. So, again, yeah, I don't think, or I'm not prepared, and I don't believe any deal with Rudy Gobert is imminent, but I don't think he is one of those completely untouchable players on the roster.
Have the Pacers, through the first two games of the finals, done enough to already convince you that they can make this a series and, perish the thought, even steal it? Or are they going to have to win Game 3 Wednesday night for you to go that far?
Yeah, I mean, I do think Game 3 is a big one to get on top of the Thunder and really kind of put some pressure on their shoulders. I do think it's entirely possible that they do win because I do think that they will have all that energy of the building. Role players typically play better at home. We saw that for the Wolves in Game 3 against the Thunder and how well they shot it, from their role players, and in Game 4 as well. And so I think they can win, but I think they have to win, Dan. That's not anything beyond an obvious statement, but OKC really did seem to look more like itself in Game 2 and certainly wrestled back some of the control. And so now what the Pacers have to do is show that Game 1 wasn't a fluke, that they do have the ability to get up and down with the Thunder, that they are not going to back down from them. And then on their home floor, they are going to knock down shots and going to grab rebounds that they couldn't in Game 2. I do think it's possible, but yes, until I see it, I'm just going to reserve judgment. I still think it's Oklahoma City's series. I think they're the better team, but an Indiana win in Game 3 would certainly open my eyes and make me think twice about that.
The Pacers guards, I know that the team prides itself on moving the ball, involving everybody. But ultimately, aren't you going to have to get more scoring from one or both of the very capable, at least certainly at times we've seen these playoffs, Pacer guards?
Yeah, for sure, Dan, especially Halliburton.
Yes.
Even in Game 1, I think he only had 14 points, right? And then he made the big shot at the end. So this is a time where there's been so much conversation around him specifically because of all the big shots that he is hitting in the playoffs and because of some of the major games that he had in the Eastern Conference playoffs in the run-up to get Indiana here. In the first two games, he has been really quiet from a production standpoint. And Lou Dort, I think Lou Dort and Alex Caruso have really done a good job of making it hard for him to get loose and get going. And I do think that in the finals, you have to have your star players come through in major ways. And we have started to have conversations. Is Halliburton a top 10 guy? Is he top 15? Where does he fit in the hierarchy? Man, he's been unbelievable in these playoffs. But for me, to cement his status as a legitimate back end of the top 10 kind of player, he's going to have to be more assertive. He's going to have to understand that kind of the way that he has played to this point has been effective, but what they need from him now is something entirely different. They need from him to set the tone, to be a force offensively, and to be aggressive that way. So he forces the Thunder to react and give even more attention to him and open things up for his teammates. I think he's been trying to ease his way into these first two games and then capitalize off of the success of his teammates when it's got to be the other way around here in Game 3 in Indiana.
I know Timberwolves fans hate to hear this, and they want to often and constantly obsess about the free throw merchant nonsense. Mm-hmm. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one marvelous basketball player. I think we're seeing further evidence of that through the first couple games of this series.
He's tremendous, and I will say this, the first couple of games, there hasn't been a whole lot of the theatrics that we did see earlier in the playoffs, and I understand Wolves fans and other NBA fans getting frustrated with some of the flopping that he does and some of that embellishing for sure, but you also have to open your eyes and see how ruthlessly efficient that he is. And you know, I liken him, Dan, to a modern-day guards version of Tim Duncan.
Yes.
He is not going to be a guy who dunks on you, who hits 30-foot bombs, who has these unbelievable, dynamic, highlight-grabbing plays. But what he is relentless, and he is consistent, and he is unbelievably reliable. And when you look at what it takes to win a championship, I think that is an unbelievable model to follow. And he gets to his spots and he knocks down those shots. And it's the kind of thing that you look at and you say, man, the footwork's great, but his athleticism doesn't jump off the screen. How is he doing it? He's so smart. He is so skilled, and he just finds a way. He is Greg Maddux. He is not going to blow the fastball by you. He is nibbling at the corners until you are dead. And what he has done in these playoffs is remarkable. Every single game, he's over 30 points. He is giving you exactly what they need every single game. And, yeah, it's just he is not going to win the press conference, and he is not going to be number one on the SportsCenter top 10 highlights, but he just does his job better than anyone is doing their own job right now in these playoffs. It's been an unbelievable run.
Finally, will you diagram and or translate for me this logo discussion on the court, this debate? Because I'm totally lost on exactly what the argument is over and why any of us should care.
Yeah, and for me, it's not the logo, and I'll expand it out, but I'll start with where the logo discussion is. For this year, on the NBA Finals courts in Oklahoma City, in Indiana, there was no discernible marking that this was the finals. We have seen in the past where the courts have had a huge Larry O'Brien trophy at center court. We have seen in the deeper past where there's been the NBA Finals script logos that have been put on the courts in other areas of the court, something to let the viewer know that they're watching something different than a regular season game, than a regular playoff game. And I think there's been some frustration with that among the fan base, among kind of the NBA diehards of like, wait a minute, for the in-season tournament that we see, you have these like garishly painted courts, and it shows the viewer that this is some sort of elevated competition. But for the NBA Finals, you don't do anything. And then in Game 2, they tried to put some superimposed, trophies on the court, digitally, and it really looked cheesy, to be honest with you. And so, so it's nitpicking, honestly, Dan, is what it is. But I do think that it goes to a greater critique of the way that these finals are presented. You and I remember in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s, Bob Costas with some poetic open that happened before every game, introduced using the player introductions and televising those live, doing things around the game to heighten the production level and say, this is a really big deal. And I think ESPN ABC, for the most part, right now in these first two games, it doesn't feel like this is a heightened experience. It feels like another game, and it's been a little flat. And I think the logo is just one of many symptoms of this production that need to be stepped up, frankly.
They don't know how to do it. I honestly don't think they know how to do it. That's a big part of it. The larger issue that you're talking about. And some of it is, you got to have people who can write and who can think on that level. And it sounds lofty because it's not impossible to do, but it's a huge contrast from what you're used to. And it all does kind of fit together, right? It doesn't like make the product, but it enhances, right? That's what you're looking for.
100%. And it, we could spend 3 hours on this. Maybe next week when I come in, we'll dive in deeper. But it really does speak to just how ESPN does the NBA in general now, where they have gone away from intelligent, thoughtful commentary and analysis, and they have gone to just debate and selling every single bit of real estate that they can possibly sell, so that there is no room within the broadcast to have extra time to have the pomp and circumstance, to have the poetry, to have the drama and stuff. Instead, it's just like the pregame is a couple of guys yelling at each other about who needs to step up. The halftime show is a joke. And the postgame is go to SportsCenter with Scott Van Pelt, who does a good job interviewing guys and going that way. And so it's just like they've fallen short and insulted the viewer's intelligence by the way they go about things, and we're all poorer for it.
Well, yeah, I'll give you a good example of what they get fixated by. Like, who needs, which point guard needs this game or this series more? And
exactly.
It's like, well, I mean, first of all, you can answer that question to a certain extent, in 30 seconds, right? Because you can suggest, well, Halliburton, if he wants to be placed on that upper level, he probably needs it more, but it's not worth it. There's a million ways to convey whatever you want to convey about either of those players without making that every one of these items a debate point and still having conversation and even disagreement, right, about whatever point that you're trying to make. But that's always the bit. It's like, who needs this more? That sort of thing. And I just don't, it becomes a very circular discussion that isn't all that interesting.
And too often, in my view, Dan, it's all about who can we jump on to embarrass, criticize, tar and feather in the town square, and how can I get people to click on my little 30-second criticism of LeBron James, of this guy, of that guy, instead of it's how can we tell a great story and get people interested?
Right.
Like, can we show that we really like this game, that it is entertaining, that we can tell a story to the fans about why you should be interested in this, and instead it's who can I bake today, who can I fry, who can I cook today that is going to get everyone else upset about watching, and then is going to kind of respond in a rage baity way rather than wow, this is a heck of a story. I'm more invested in this now. I want to watch and see how this plays out. It's just unfortunate.
Thanks as always, my friend. We'll be in touch, and maybe, like you said, maybe see you in studio next week. That'd be terrific. That's the plan?
That's the plan. I'm going to try and make it next week, and it should be fun. I can't wait for it.
Beautiful. Thanks, Johnny. We'll talk then.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
John Krasinski, Johnny Athletic, brought to you by RBC Wealth Management. Some good text reacting to our discussion with Johnny, coming in not just from the basketball community, but also the hockey community. Could get very spicy. Stay tuned. of text coming into the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line. Last half hour of today's edition of the Bumper to Bumper program. Barreiro and Blakemore with you till 6:30. Guardsy should be back for tomorrow's program. A couple folks who were listening to the discussion with Jonny, conversation with Jonny. Heightened production level of NBA Finals. Give me a break. I know. Let's add even more hype about a basketball game. Don't know about you guys, but I'm watching the games. I wish I could find 952 guy the video. I'm going to find it overnight, and maybe we will play it tomorrow, of an example of precisely what Jonny was referring to and what I was also talking about. Because I don't think you quite understand what we're suggesting here. Heightening production doesn't mean hyping, screaming, dazzling with a bunch of, fancy numbers. What it has historically meant, and what it tended to mean a little bit more often back in the NBC days, was a more literate open. By that, an open that sometimes was written by Costas, for example, that didn't hype the game beyond what it already was, but it seemed to distill it, to capture what's at stake, to review in a very literate way what had taken place in that series up until then. That's not hyping it. That's trying to illuminate it. And that's what we're talking about. It's not, louder, more unusual sound effects, because there's already too many sound effects in all sports for me at this point. Too many different noises going off, too many different explosions, too much basso profundo bass. No, it's an essay. It's information that helps to sort of capture, okay, what's at stake here? What's happened to this point in the series? And is that the difference between, first of all, generally, and the NBA is fine in terms of TV ratings, but it's a way to conceptualize it better and really convey it better, capture it better to the audience. And that's less about having, a funky debate over who needs this, what point guard needs this more to get on the map, that sort of thing. That's what we're talking about. So I think when he hears heightening the production level, he thinks, like I said, bells and whistles. He thinks more noises, more goofy sounders. No. That's production that really doesn't really enhance or make any sense. To me, the kind of production you're talking about is just somebody speaking either into the camera, or in the case of the one I remember, it was more, it might have even been towards the end of the Bulls dynasty run. It was an attempt to sort of put that team into some kind of historical perspective and what might even be at the stake in that game. And that's just done with people who know the game. And this could be true. This is true of any game. It's not just basketball, hockey, football, whatever the case may be. And I don't know if there's fewer people who can write that kind of stuff in 2025. I think that's sadly part of it. But that's more what we're talking about here, not something that's going to try to the stuff we're talking about doesn't take away from the games at all. It enhances the games in a way that brings the whole thing home and as I said, brings some sort of history to it. Chuck, next to Hazelden, what's most amazing about SGA is that he makes basketball look easy. That's a good way to put it. I mean, Jonny mentioned Tim Duncan and Greg Maddux. And those are two more good examples. And that's high praise. And you could say, well, SGA isn't on that level of either of those athletes yet. And you could say in terms of accomplishment, that's probably true. But stylistically, it makes sense. Duncan never dazzled anybody, right? He was called, what was his nickname? The Big Fundamental. Footwork. Getting from point A to point B. Making the reliable play. Making the big shot. Commanding the defense. All the things that are conducive and contribute to winning. But in his case, he His dunks weren't thunderous, right? He didn't have chocolate thunder dunks a la Daryl Dawkins. There weren't that many plays he made where you go, "Ooh, man, that took my breath away." But he was effective. Greg Maddux, couldn't throw a fastball 95 miles per hour, but what he could do is change speeds. What he could do is move the ball all around the plate, keep the hitter off balance. He made it look easy that way. And I think it is the biggest thing hurting SGA is that, 9 times out of 10, Anthony Edwards is going to get more of the highlights because he's got more physicality to his game. He's got, you could say, more spectacular to his game, has more power to his game when it's going good. But he's not as effective a player as SGA. It's not even close, frankly. And that's not even meant as a rip on Anthony Edwards. Because a lot of what SGA does, believe it or not, is not related to the free throw nonsense. It's related to getting to the spaces on the places on the court that he wants to get to with ease, with good footwork again, with creating space, and doing it so elegantly that you almost miss it. You go, that doesn't even seem like that big of a deal. That's what he does. He's a hell of a basketball player. And by the way, again, we can talk about the theatrics, and they've bothered me from time to time, but there's not a team in the league that does not consider part of greatness, if you're an offensive player, getting to the free throw line. Moving your body in such a way that the referee is more likely to assess a foul call on the person who's trying to guard you. Creating angles and space and then movement where he knows where he's going to go and the defensive player doesn't know where he's going to go. Look at all of the great offensive players and how often most of them got to the free throw line. It's a weapon in favor of that player that adds to the greatness of the player, and it adds to the greatness of SGA as well. Let's get one more pause in. We'll wrap up the program, remind you what you missed earlier. Good conversation with Kevin Seifert. A bonus conversation with our guy Jimmy Jam with the breaking Ode to a Dead Guy news. And we'll also tell you what we have coming up on tomorrow's broadcast. Stay tuned.
Dan. It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
Surprised by American Pressure.
Thank you to Kevin Seifert, who moved up from his usual Tuesday spot on the program to help us preview the Vikings off-season mandatory workouts that start tomorrow at TCO Performance Center. We got into the discussion of how much interest the Vikings would or should have in Jair Alexander, cut by Blake Moore's team, the Green Bay Packers. In addition, we had Johnny Athletic at about 5:30, tried to clear the air in the whole Fallness controversy. And we also had an unexpected guest today reacting to the breaking news that Sly Stone of Sly and the Family Stone has died at the age of 82 years old. I heartily recommend, if you care about the Sly musical legacy, that you podcast between, about 4:15, 4:20-ish, and 4:45, our extended discussion with Jimmy Jam Harris, who talks about the degree to which he was influenced, Prince was influenced by Sly's music, his own experience on the issue of why individuals who have that much talent end up, to a certain extent, after a wonderful start, not fully realizing it or maintaining it, in his part because he had drug issues among many other things, and the whole concept of the tragedy of having people around you who tell you what you want to hear rather than sometimes what individuals in that spot need to hear. So good discussion with him. We expect Guardsy back tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. And Louis is going to join. I think Louis is in Italy now. He was in Marrakesh last week when we joined him, or when he joined us. I think this week he's going to be in Italy. It's good to be Louis, as we say in the business. And I'm sure we'll react to game number 3, Stanley Cup final, correct?
That is today.
Somebody's bitter. Izzy Presley's bitter that I always call it Stanley Cup finals. I call it NBA finals, too. It's not a conspiracy. Once again, it's the insecurity among hockey people. Oh, are you trying to troll us? No, I say finals. I don't know what's proper, but I just use the S on it. I've learned to not say daylight savings time, and I should say daylight saving time. I guess I can say, do you say Stanley Cup final or finals?
It's supposed to be final, but this is a thing that doesn't really, I don't know. For whatever reason, it doesn't get me going. Shouldn't be that big of an issue. No, yeah. I don't. I mean, there's a million things to get people going. I'm not sure that this one should. I did find, and we'll save it for tomorrow, an example of the kind of, I think, presentation leading into a game that just feels like it's got more richness to it than what we have going on today. But as I said, I don't think... I don't know if it's production people. I don't think ESPN gets it. And we've talked about this before, even as it pertains to hockey. And basketball, I think the TNT production feels weightier to me. I can't sometimes even put my finger on it, but I just feel different when I watch it. I tend to, right? Doesn't mean the people who are doing it on ESPN aren't professional. Obviously they are, but it just doesn't feel quite the same to me. So what do we have coming up tonight? Is a fan and a man in the air? It is not. We're going straight into NHL. Oh, right into Stanley Cup final. Game 3. Game 3. Who do you have tonight? I mean, that's an ESPN question. I shouldn't even ask you because it's stupid. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like tonight's, it's all about tonight, right? I have it going 7, but I don't know how we're going to get there. You picked Edmonton originally? I did. Are you sticking with that? I think so. I'm not as confident after last game where it seemed like they were going to make a miraculous comeback after Corey Perry tied it. And somehow the Panthers still found a way to win. But I still am going to stick with my gut and go Oilers. Okay, that's fair. Dan, is it possible that the production value is down because the network's overpaid for the product? They have to oversell the real estate around the game. They still lose money. Sports costs are out of control, and the networks have themselves to blame. Well, that might have to do with, like, it feels on ESPN as if you really can't. In fairness to the talking heads, it doesn't feel like they have as much time as the TNT crew does in discussing whatever the subject might be. And maybe that's because they've got to sell more commercial time, or they have to feel like that the only way they can successfully produce it is they got to turn it into almost those sort of, ESPN daytime programming kind of debates. What's the show that Stephen A is on? What's that called? Remember the name of that show? First Take? First Take. Yeah, that you have to first take-a-size everything to that extent. And there may be some truth to that. And I'm not as down on First Take as some people. It serves a purpose. It is what it is. But it's kind of formulaic a little bit. And what I think it is a problem when it starts bleeding into covering events themselves, where it almost feels like it's a continuation of that same thing. Not because of the individuals you're using, because Stephen A. obviously is using both, but sort of the way the stories are the game is set up, the way it might be characterized as well. Somebody's suggesting that the problem with ESPN is Disney, that Disney is the problem. Maybe it is. I don't even know that I understand who owns who or who influenced whom in that regard. I have not all that much understanding of that. I do remember being at a Wild game in Anaheim in the press box on the phone with Patrick Royce for whatever reason, and I swore in having conversation with him about was just how people can sometimes talk to each other, and I was admonished by one of the employees working the press box. This is a Disney deal. We appreciate eliminating those kinds of words. That's the only time I've ever been in a press box. And this, by the way, wasn't like a continual salvo of four-letter words, but I threw one in, and that's the first time I can remember before, since, during, after.
ever being admonished for language of that sort in a press box. But that's Disney. At least then. I don't know if that would still be the case. That was many, many decades ago. That was a long, long time ago. Brett Blakemore, thank you for helping us out again today. Much appreciated. I'm sure we'll see you later in the week at one point or another. I am off for, I'll tell you now, closed circuit, off for Father's Day on Sunday.
Oh.
So you'll either have, I'm assuming maybe Cine, maybe Best Of, I'm not sure. That'll be
good to know.
Passed along to you, but I wanted you to know early. So there's no surprises. Yeah. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we will chat with you tomorrow at 3 o'clock right here on The Fan.
I'll be there when